Hi fellow expat lovers, welcome back. You are with Amira and I'm sitting at the beautiful Green Lake. So you're going to get a view of Green Lake, the passers-by of Green Lake, and a review about the pros and cons of what it's like to live in Beirut and in Lebanon. Lebanon's a very small country, so there's only a certain amount of things you can do there, but it's definitely not boring. There's a lot to do in Lebanon and also in Beirut. You could drive from the north to the south of Beirut pretty much in one day, in the same day. You could go east to west in the same day. It's not very far. So it is a fairly small country. There's Tripoli, Beirut, there's a few cities or major cities, a few smaller cities or towns, bigger towns dotted around the place, and a lot of little villages, a lot of villages. So pros and cons of living in Beirut, other than the fact that people can get scared about bomb attempts of terrorism and things like that, it's very unlikely anyone will be killed in some sort of terrorist attack or bomb explosion, even though they do happen. So there's a lot of political unrest currently in Lebanon. It goes up and down. You know, there's sometimes things are smooth sailing, other times there's problems with government, so it depends on when you're watching this video and what's going on. I lived on the north part of Beirut, which goes into the Christian side of Beirut and the suburbs and villages and towns on the northern side. So that kind of encompasses, you know, quite a lot of Christian villages, Christian towns, dominated Christian towns. So some people say if you live on the south side of Beirut and going into Shiite or Sunni areas, it could be a little bit more tricky, a little bit more dangerous, just due to some conflicts between the two religious factions and groups, etc. From time to time. They have their little skirmishes and things. But while I was there, there were a couple of bomb strikes, but nothing huge, nothing major. And everyone just kind of went about their business. A lot of people just went home, sat at home. Some people went out. It didn't disrupt not saying that it's not something that is to be taken into consideration, but because the Lebanese have been through so much, through the civil war, they take these small things, not small things, but these bomb attempts, bomb attacks, things that happen maybe down in the downtown area and other parts, kind of on a day-to-day basis. So some of you might be, worried about that, thinking about that, etc., but that is what it is. So I'll start with the cons. Pros and cons are pretty even, or there's probably a few more pros. So I'll start with the cons. It's probably one of my most favourite places I ever lived at the time when I was in Beirut, which was from 2010 to 2013. And I had a really, really good time there. I just found it very nice to live there. Everything was beautiful. Everything was fine. So some of the cons are you'll never be totally accepted if you are not Lebanese or of Lebanese origin. There'll be something about you that will be a little bit outside the box for the Lebanese, and that really goes back to their families and also quite a lot of a village mentality. Not a lot of people get totally accepted into Lebanese society, culture, etc., unless they are Lebanese. But then again, in high society circles, they're more educated, they're more open, and they're more international. They've often lived and studied abroad, so they are more welcoming of foreign people. Another con is people often disappear into their families when they either have no money to go out, or there is something going on in their family, or for the holidays. So sometimes during the holidays, for the Lebanese, it's a very family sort of time. I have been invited to people's homes during the holidays, but sometimes people will just disappear, and some of them will disappear, I found, on a regular basis for longer periods of time. So they might just go to their village. A lot of people who live in Beirut or live in a city in Lebanon, they do have relatives in the villages, in a particular village where they originate from. So they'll just go to the village, they might go and visit relatives, or they might just go and sit with their families. What they call sitting with their families is just hanging out with their families, and you might not hear or see, friends for a while they're with their families, and they could be with their families for a variety of reasons. And it's often very difficult to understand why people disappear and then they reappear. It's quite difficult to understand that from more of a Western perspective, where things are sort of more fluid and more on a regular basis. The Lebanese do often just disappear, then they come back to life. So sometimes there's certain things in the culture that you just won't ever really understand. Some people are flaky, and it could be because of things that happen like this, where they disappear into their families, or they might want to promise you something and they can't deliver it, and then they become flaky because of that. They don't do it out of any mean intention and don't mean any harm, but sometimes they can be a little flaky, and sometimes they can overpromise and underdeliver, but sometimes they can deliver and it's absolutely fine. So it just depends on the circumstance, on the person, etc. You can receive gossip from, or feel like people are living around you, neighbours are gossiping, or there's some sort of gossip going on. They can find foreigners or even just regular neighbours, Lebanese neighbours, quite intriguing, and they can stare at you from the balcony and gossip about you. They can also make up stories about you that might not exist. They could gossip about you. There could be just general people that gossip about you. And this, to me, really just comes from a little bit of a village mentality, and it's also a mentality of just being a little bit bored. So that can also come into it. If you are female, you could get jealousy from other women. And especially if you're a younger female, you could be seen as a threat to Lebanese women. There's a lot of Lebanese girls and virgins and younger women in their 20s sitting in Lebanon waiting for a husband to come along or to come back from working overseas to marry them and sweep them off to a different life. So there is a larger number of Lebanese women to men in Lebanon who may be readily available for relationship. So some of the Lebanese women could be threatened by your presence if you tend to attract or take, or what they perceive as taking their Lebanese boyfriends from them or potential husbands from them. So it's not necessarily true, but it can be perceived as that. So you could get jealousy from women. If you're a man, I'm not sure if you'll get jealousy from men, because the Lebanese men are pretty confident within themselves, but both Lebanese men and women are very, vivacious, charming. They're often, quite attractive. So, you can get threats, or be threatened by women, or gossips by women mainly, and sometimes men, but mainly women, I would say, and neighbours. There are limited opportunities to make money unless you have a good job. So some people go there, they're employed by an international organisation, UN, United Nations, some sort of World Health Organization, or international banking corporation or something like that. So there's few and far, or an embassy. There's few and far between jobs for international people in Lebanon, and the Lebanese are highly educated. They often speak 2 or 3 different languages or more. They've often lived abroad. The ones that are educated have lived abroad. So in that context, if you are not sought after because of your particular skills, etc., a Lebanese person will fill probably a role that you're going for. There's also the American University of Beirut. Some people who are lecturers or professors from other countries do go to work there, so that's another option as well, in some sort of international university. And it is one of the most prestigious universities in the Middle East, so a lot of people study there from all over the Middle East. at the AUB, American University of Beirut. So some Americans will go there because they're American and they will be able to get jobs there as well, or they'll be sent there for their particular skill set. Salaries can be low in Lebanon if you're getting paid in Lebanese currency, and also if you're getting employed inside the country and it's not a special package as an expat. So salaries can be very low. And another con that you might take into consideration is language barrier, language situation. French and Arabic are the official two languages of Lebanon. A lot of people speak English, but they're either educated Christian Lebanese, some, not all, and Muslim Lebanese educated will often speak English as opposed to French. So there'll be more English educated than French educated. So they might have gone to a school that was Arabic and English, or Arabic and German even. Some people in Lebanon also speak German quite well. And I, found the language pretty easy to pick up, but I do have a background in languages and I do like Lebanese Arabic, and I had a fairly good handle or a mediocre handle of French before I went to Lebanon. So I kind of got by in that, and also English. If you go to the supermarket, most staff at supermarkets only speak Arabic, they don't speak French. They're normally the less educated Lebanese, working the very menial jobs. So you kind of have to get by on a little bit of Arabic. But once you sort of know a few words and you can put them together, it's not really a big problem. And you could always use Google Translate as well if you got really stuck. So I didn't find that really an issue or problem. The only thing that I found a bit tricky was reading the street signs, because I don't read Arabic. I can speak some Arabic but not read it. So a lot of the street signs all of the street signs and some other signs were in Arabic, also in Roman letters, or in French or English version of Arabic, but not always. So sometimes you would get a little bit stuck with some Arabic signs. Yeah, Arabic signs. Hard to read, hard to understand. But sometimes you got to kind of know a little bit of them, so you kind of understood what was going on a bit. But that can be a con as well. It could take a while to pick up some language skills to be able to feel like you can kind of get by. But most people will speak English who are educated. But if you're going out to the villages, you're going out to the countryside, you're going out of the bigger cities, you might find it a little bit tricky and difficult. But the people are so friendly that usually they try to help you anyway, or find somebody who speaks something that you speak, so they can kind of work things out with you. They're very hospitable. Another con, a big con for me at the time, was the internet. Internet was very, very low, also very difficult to get a good internet cable or connection at home, Wi-Fi connection with cables and all sorts of things coming in from across the street, and a lot of wires and things like that. The internet would often just cut off, and it would cut off at the main source, wherever that was coming from the shop that you bought it from. It would cut off at the source. A very complicated situation, and hopefully they have improved it since then. I know that in Greece, about 5 years ago, the internet was really bad in Greece, but now everyone's getting those dishes in, those big satellite dishes that they put on the balcony. Apparently that really, really works. So I don't know if they've got that in Lebanon now, or it's gotten better, but it was on 2G when I was there, 2G to 3G. Even on like your smartphone, it was a bit tricky. But, you kind of persevered with it. Also, the other thing that goes hand in hand with the internet is the electricity being cut off. So that would be cut off 12 hours a day, and that's normal in most of Beirut and I think most of Lebanon. If you live near a hospital, they usually guarantee pretty good electricity and water flow. So if you were in one of the parts of, I think it's Ashrafia in Beirut, on the north side of Beirut, there's a hospital area there with quite a big suburb around there. They would say that they had pretty good electricity most of the time, and good water also all the time or most of the time. So that might have also changed. So this is my pros and cons from when I was living there, and any other information I've received from people I know who are still there. They do say that the internet has improved a bit, but I'm just not sure about that. The electricity cutting off is a problem because the generators go on and they only take a certain amount of power. So there's certain things you can and can't do in your home because of the electricity power. So often you can't put on a television and a hairdryer, or a washing machine and something else, the air conditioning. So it's either one thing or nothing, or maybe one small thing that you can have that would be operable in times where the generator's on. The other thing I found in Beirut was that the water would run out. The government would only send water once or twice a week, and we had tanks on the roof that would fill up the tanks, and once that ran out we had to call the waterman. So sometimes a very inconvenient times you might run out of water if you're in the shower or you're doing a load of washing or something like that. You run out of water, then you've got to call the waterman. They come, they're pretty efficient, they do come, but it's just a pain because the tanks are very small and the water runs out pretty quickly. I moved in the end to Jebel, which is the ancient city of Byblos, and there are some other parts of Lebanon like Jebel, like other cities and towns, where the water does not run out, so it's constant water. So you don't have to worry about the water, but the electricity still runs out and there's still problems with the internet at the time. So I think it depends on what building you're in, where you're living, what connections they've got, what city you're in, what town you're in, what part of, what suburb you're in. That will depict what you're going to actually experience with those sort of things. So that can be tedious and tenuous, but you kind of end up just working with it. You just end up working around it, working with it, and managing, as you do. Even if you went to live in Africa, you would end up managing something. So yeah, so they're the main cons. And on top of that, bomb scares, bombs, being dropped from Israel. That did happen in 2006. They bombed a very big bridge in the north of Lebanon, north of Beirut, in a seaside area called Jouni, which where a lot of people go for the weekend, for holidays. They have holiday apartments there or chalets. They have, and a lot of people live there as well. So things like that can happen out of the blue. They can happen, when you're least expected. The probability of anybody, getting hit in that sort of situation is low, but it can also create panic, turmoil, unrest, stress in general. It could create a situation where you're trying to get out of the country and you can't. I did know quite a lot of Lebanese Australians who were visiting at the time, and they wanted to get out. They wanted to go back to Australia, or had to go back to Australia, and they ended up getting ferries, or there were big boats that took most of the people who wanted to evacuate out to Cyprus, and they flew out from there. So they took them out in boats to Cyprus. So sometimes these things can be problematic and tedious. The latest thing was the incident down at the port. That was an accident, the explosion that happened down there. But it was still a very, disastrous and very sad event that happened in Lebanon, and a shame that it happened, in the historical centre and down on the port. So anyway, moving on to the pros. When everything's good in Lebanon, you have to kind of gauge it. Is it a good time to be there or not be there? There's amazing nightlife. They have beautiful nightclubs that are, a lot of them, the ones in summer, are open air. They're on rooftops or open air nightclubs. Most of them are on rooftops. They have amazing entertainment, great music, great food. and just a whole lot of just really nice ambience. So the outdoor rooftop clubs are fantastic, and some great indoor ones for the winter are also amazing as well. Mandaloon, for example, and there's another one that does like a full show that is absolutely fabulous as well. And the Lebanese really know how to party, they know how to have a good time. They don't get, even if they do drink a lot, which, that I'd never really ever saw any Lebanese people drunk. So they're always eating food with their drinks. They'll smoke shisha, they'll just take it easy, take their time. I never saw anyone in Lebanon disorderly, drunken, disorderly, out of context, or inappropriate in public at any sort of night venue. And that's what I really liked about it. It was just fun, enjoyable. Nobody was, messy. They might get messy later in the night, but say up until 1 o'clock in the morning, everything was pretty nice. So, so that was one of the highlights of Lebanon. Great restaurants, great bars, beautiful hotels as well, down in the heart of the city and also near the Corniche, which is on the waterfront, down in that area. Beautiful. They've really done a great job renovating the downtown area of Beirut, and it looks like a beautiful upscale French influenced city with an Arabic touch. It's just beautiful, but it looks very European and very French, the downtown area, and it's on the water and it's gorgeous. The Mediterranean Sea, and the beaches there are clean, beautiful. You can swim. People swim right off the rocks in the main part of Beirut, downtown Beirut. They swim right out into the sea there. They have beach clubs down there you can go to as well, pools, all sorts of things, hotels that have their own private beaches and private pools. So, they have a lot of fun things to do, a lot of nice things to do. Fun and nice things to do. So, the nature and the weather is another pro, is probably the best in the world. The nature and the weather is the best in the world. Beautiful, beautiful weather, very temperate Mediterranean weather. It never got too cold in the winter or too hot in the summer. It was just beautiful. And I think it's because of the mountains that protect, Beirut and the coast from getting overly hot. Whereas if you go further north to Antalya in Turkey, which is not very far away, really, literally, apparently there it gets extremely hot and humid in the summertime. It can get hot in Beirut and on the coast of Lebanon, but it doesn't get overly, unbearably hot. So I found that the climate there all year round, one of the best weathers in the world I've ever seen, had, experienced. It was just beautiful. The weather is gorgeous. A couple of times they have a bit of a rainstorm in winter, a bit of a windy rainstorm, and that's about it. So yeah, it's just gorgeous weather, very, very beautiful. And they've got the snow in the mountains as well. So they've got, skiing in the winter time, and you can go up to the mountains, go skiing, come back down, and some people say come back down and go to the beach or sit out in the sun and have a nice lunch outdoors or something like that. So you can do that. That can happen from time to time. Another pro is the organic and grown produce inside the country. It's self-sufficient for most of its food. In Lebanon, they have all the beautiful Mediterranean fruits, all the beautiful Mediterranean types of foods, olives, nuts, almonds, bananas, avocados, all grown there, strawberries, kiwi fruits. I used to pick figs off a tree. There's outside my building where I was living, absolutely beautiful fresh figs. And you can often just pick fruits off a tree in Lebanon. It's very organic, has a very organic, natural feel to it, a little bit like Greece, where there's just this bounty of beautiful food and natural food and organic food. lots of citrus trees, and they make the most amazing fruit cocktail in Lebanon, which is served in a big cocktail glass, mixed fruits with a very interesting type of avocado, sweet avocado kind of smoothie kind of drizzled on top of it, plus a cream type of substance that actually I think comes from a custard apple fruit, which is blended, and it's just absolutely delicious, and nuts and things like that put on top as well. So the food there is delicious, very organic, very natural, and a lot of it is very healthy. So they also have wineries, they have their own wine, they've got meats, they've got cheeses. They basically have everything they want inside Lebanon, so that's good. Not a lot of imports, I noticed, so if you were looking for specialty items at supermarkets for making something different that might have been Asian, or it might have been something specific that is not Lebanese or Mediterranean cuisine, then it could be difficult to find. But you could find it, like there would be ways to find it. There were some different types of stores that had imports, but they're probably going to be expensive to pay for the imported food. Great doctors and surgeons. I think they're much better than the UAE, than the Emirates, United Arab Emirates. A lot of people from all over the Middle East will come to have plastic surgery in Lebanon. There's a lot of specialised surgeons of every field of surgery there, simply because many of them studied in France. A lot of them are French educated. They went to university and studied medicine in France or Germany or America. Even I had a great chiropractor at a hospital there who was amazing. I had other specialists that I saw, dentists as well who were great. A lot of the doctors there are fantastic, dermatologists, really, really good. And anything to do with beauty, plastic surgery, cosmetology, etc. is highly recommended in Lebanon, because they're very much into their looks and how they look, and looking the best that they can, and as beautiful as they can. Also, the beaches and coastline are just gorgeous. A lot of cliffs, a lot of beaches, a lot of coastline, gorgeous day clubs as well, beach day clubs you can go to. Usually there's a fee to either go in or to rent, like a spot, or a sunbed or whatever it might be, umbrella, etc. But a lot of fun places to go out at the beach, having a really, lots of fun. And most of the beach clubs also have pools, they have umbrellas, they have restaurants, they have music, they have, food service delivered to your deck chair and things like that. So things are very, very nice, very beautiful, very, a lot of fun. Yeah, a lot of fun. For me, personally, Beirut and Lebanon was extremely safe. I felt safer there than Dubai, which is saying something. The top two safest places I would say that I've been in have been Lebanon, and this is for personal sort of everyday safety. If you take away any sort of dramatic events that might happen with, conflict and things like that. So Lebanon and Thailand would be the top two of the safest places that I think are, easy. The only thing with Lebanon, if you did go out to try to find a store open at 3 o'clock in the morning, you probably wouldn't find one. But if you did have to go out, that's usually my test, is if you can go to the 7-Eleven at 3 a.m., will you get harassed if you walk there in a built-up area? You might get stared at, and you could even get followed in Lebanon, but you would not get, straight out assaulted or anything like that. Usually people will probably back off if you tell them to back off. So, they normally behave themselves. I had a guy follow me once in his car, and I just stopped my car. I wound down my window, and I just said to him, if you don't stop following me, I'm going to call the police. And he just went, oh, okay. And he just went off then. So sometimes they can just get a little overly excited. They want to say hello. They want to talk to you. And if you do not want to be bothered, you can tell them to leave you alone and they will. So that's usual protocol in Lebanon. And I think what comes under that is that they don't want to tarnish the reputation of their family. Because in Lebanon, because it's such a small country and they're basically originating from villages, so everything goes back to a village. And if you shame the family name by stealing, by killing, by raping, you will be, your family's name will be tarnished for, you know, not so much centuries, but for decades. Like you'll be the, you know, the grandson of this rapist or this killer or this robber or, you know, this thief or something like that, or this tyrant or whatever. So they don't want to shame their families, and because of that they don't, you know, they don't do anything. And there's not a huge police presence. I didn't see it, but they're probably there. They're probably there in, you know, in the background, in, you know, around, you know, around the, you know, certain parts, etc. They're probably there. So I would say that if anything did happen to anybody in Lebanon, that the police would probably assist them in whatever way they could. But very rarely did I ever hear of anything at all happening to anyone in Beirut. And that's the north part of Beirut. I don't know what happens on the south side. I don't know what happens in Tripoli either, but Tripoli I think is pretty tame. I've been there a few times. I went to the markets there, the souk. I found it very fascinating. But, you know, I don't think there's really a lot to worry about. You might get stared at, but people don't often do much, you know. They don't do much. They don't act out of line. I never felt threatened in Lebanon. Bothered a couple of times by people following me, but not threatened. I don't think they would ever kind of lift their finger or do something to you. So, and it could be also because of their laws. Their laws could be quite stringent as well. And I don't think anyone would want to go to a Lebanese jail. You know, not that I've ever heard about Lebanese jails, but I don't think anyone would want to go there. Yeah, and most things don't happen because of they're protecting the reputation of their families and things like that. So the other pro I have is people watching you with a protective eye or a curious eye, depending on the person. So people will start watching out for you, especially in your neighborhood or friends or people that you become acquaintances with or friends. They will genuinely keep an eye out for you or try to protect you in some way or help you in any way that they can. So I found that was quite nice, yeah. And if anything did happen, like the neighbours, because they could be a little nosy, like from the next building, not in my building, but from the next building, you know, somebody's going to see something. Also, a lot of Lebanese people, because a lot of people often live in one apartment, some people do sleep in the balcony. They sleep on the balcony, in the balcony. So there's usually these canopies that are pulled down to protect any wind, sun, or rain coming onto the balconies. So some people I know really love to sleep on their balconies, and they would sleep on their balconies. So if anything did happen outside, you know, somebody's building, people who were sitting or sleeping on their balcony would probably witness what's going on, you know, or they might be, if they're awake, they could be watching what's going on. So there's also always some sort of watchful eye out and about that I felt, you know, was good. I felt like in most cases it was a protective eye. It wasn't like somebody's spying on you, stalking you or anything like that. It was more of a curious eye and a protective eye. Not the evil eye, just a protective eye. Another pro is if you have skills and good connections, you can make a business there, but it depends on what it is, and it has to be something that is in demand. It has to be a great idea, it has to be a good deal, has to be something that is in demand. It has to be something affordable. A lot of things to do with beauty, fashion, that type of thing work really well in Lebanon. And I've known people to have quite good businesses there. It's very affordable. Lebanon is an affordable country. It's quite cheap, especially if you're earning American dollars or dirhams from UAE or something like that. It is quite an affordable country. It's quite affordable as long as there's available housing that's affordable. I do know that after the problems with Syria, a lot of Syrians migrated into Lebanon, and I think they were taking up a lot of the housing situations, especially Syrians who have money would come in and they would rent or buy property there. So it could have created a bit of a housing shortage, I'm not sure, but there's always building going on in Lebanon. There's always construction, new buildings, new apartments, etc. going on. So normally it's pretty affordable to live there, and for the bills, for the utilities, for any other extra expenses are usually quite affordable. I liked also the fact that the rules, the driving rules, the road rules were pretty flexible. There were not many rules enforced for driving in Lebanon, and everyone drives the same. So once you get used to driving there, a lot of people get scared about driving in Lebanon, but once you get used to driving there, it's actually quite enjoyable because everybody drives the same, and you just kind of go in and surf the traffic as you feel it's going to go. And I always had a great time driving there. I really liked it. There is a nice pro as well for Lebanon, which is it's like the Paris of the East still. It had that reputation in the 60s when a lot of very famous people from Europe used to visit Beirut, especially for vacations. It was considered to be the Paris of the East. And it still has that class and elegance to it, and the people try to maintain this culture of class and elegance to Beirut. Comparing it to the rest of the potentially Arabic speaking world, I would say it's probably the most elegant and classy type of culture and society that you'll experience. Yeah, if you look at the other sort of demographics, it's more international. It has a very strong influence from the French. When the French mandate was in Lebanon, I think I'm not sure if it was 100 years, something like that. So there's a very strong link there with Europe, and it is in Levant, which is not exactly the Middle East, and it's not exactly in Europe, but it is on the Mediterranean. So you have this nice mix of worlds and cultures. The Lebanese are very intelligent. They're always doing something. They're always wanting to create something. They're not lazy. They want to make most of them. They want to make money. They want to do stuff. They want to create things. And they're usually fairly smart, street smart or book smart, and they're usually wanting to improve their lives in some way. So they have a motivation, and the whole country feels like that. Unless things go wrong with the government, people can get down with the politics and caught up in politics that can throw them off balance. But other than that, people are usually on point and wanting to enjoy themselves, have fun, and make their lives better lives. They have a very kind of easygoing approach to life, Anyway, the next point I have for a pro is it's fairly easy to meet people and have friendships or relationships. So, the Lebanese are very open. They like talking to foreign people. They're quite welcoming of foreign people. They want to know you. They want to know about where you're from. They want to have, practice their English. They want to do business with you. That can go either way. So you have to be a bit careful with that, depending on who the person is and if you should trust them or not. But generally you can make friends there. There's certain countries in the world that are very friendly and open, and you can make friends easily. And there's certain countries that are more cold and reserved, and it's harder to make friends. And Lebanon is one of the places that is more welcoming. It's, you know, in Arabic, alo sala, it's like welcome, welcome, come into our house sort of thing. So they're always wanting to invite you over to have a coffee, to chat. You know, they like sitting and talking and building friendships or making even superficial friends, you know. So in that context, if you were to go there by yourself, it would be a place where you probably would meet people quite easily. And then you have to sift and sort through to see, you know, if the people that you're meeting are good people that you want to be associated with or not. Both men and women are usually very, very stylish, sexy and friendly, can be quite glamorous as well. Looks after themselves. They like to maintain a certain presentation and look after themselves, whether it's hair, nails, makeup, dress, just how they look and how they present. Places to go, Corniche Al Manara, it was one of my favourite places to power walk. There's not that many places to get a really strong straight power walk because most of the roads are quite narrow and they've got a lot of traffic. So there's a few allocated spots where you can power walk, and one of them is on the Corniche, which is down on the waterfront in the old part of the city. And it's a beautiful walk up and down the Corniche, and it's wide enough that you can actually, you know, have enough space to walk, you know, in a good way up and down. You can jog as well if you like jogging. There's another place on the north side of Beirut, which is the marina. Some people I know used to go down to the marina and walk around there, but I prefer the Corniche. Yeah, the Corniche, right downtown. So that was always interesting, and there was always a lot of interesting characters down there to watch. Good for people watching, good to see who was down there and what people were doing. So it was often quite fun to just go and walk and see what was going on, and fairly easy to park as well down there. Other places that are fun to go to is Junier, which is the beach area, which is just north of Beirut. It's a big bay. Jebel or Byblos is a gorgeous day out or to visit or to stay. It has a beautiful old town with cobblestones and nice restaurants, a lot of fish restaurants and things like that. Fareya is the ski resort closest to Beirut, and a lot of people go up there and ski, or they go up there for lunch, or they go up there also in the summertime to stay at different resorts, or that own chalets or properties up there that have a cooler experience in the hotter summer months and enjoy the mountains. So Fareya is also one of the big interests of places to go and things to do in Lebanon. Gieta Grotto is a cave which is just north of Beirut as well, just outside of Junier. It's a little bit inland from Junier on a little road, and that is one of the most beautiful caves I've ever seen. It had a lot of different stalactites and stalagmites in there, and it had this beautiful river through it, and you weren't allowed to take any photos inside or any video or anything like that, but they take you on a tour and you go in groups, and there's a lot of day things like that you can do, excursions that are very interesting like that. And there's always a nice place to eat for lunch. You can have a nice lunch somewhere, whether it's in the mountains, on the seaside, beautiful seaside restaurants right on the water. There was even one in a place called Amshit, which is Amchit or double T. It's just north of Byblos. And there's some seafood restaurants there on this rickety old kind of pontoon made out of wood right on top of the sea. So you kind of walk into the restaurant, you end up going out, sitting on the balcony, which is actually on top of the water on stilts. Very rustic decor, but really, really good seafood. A lot of people go there, very popular place. Another pro is affordable fashion. I used to really love the store Astoria in Sin El Fil, which is on the north side of Beirut, going into the suburbs a little bit. And they have copies of designer clothes from that they import from Turkey. Turkey has amazing fashion, really, really good quality that lasts for years and years. And they have both a men's store and a woman's store, Astoria in Sinelfil. They've also got an Astoria from memory in Junior as well, in some suburb around Junior or a village there. That have another store there. Cosmetics are very cheap as well. I don't know where they got them from. They might have gotten them from China or somewhere else, or maybe they made some in the Middle East somewhere. But a lot of cosmetics were also very affordable in Lebanon, and great hairstylists and makeup artists if you're looking for that, and huge wedding productions if you're looking for a very over-the-top Lebanese style wedding. They have amazing wedding planners that give you this full, if you ever Google weddings in Lebanon, they have a huge, very spectacular weddings with all sorts of decor and themes going on. So I hope you've enjoyed my review about the pros and cons of living in Lebanon and specifically in Beirut. And thank you for subscribing and sharing. If you do like my content and you'd like to buy me a coffee, the link is below. And I've also put links there as well of how to order a personal relocated astrology reading with me, and other links that might pop up from time to time. I've put them down there as well that might be of interest. So all the very best until the next video. Ciao for now. Take care.